So, the idea for this presentation is the question that it's always was always in my mind. How far can you go in your life, in your career, in your self-improvement, in things that you like playing a guitar? How far can you go? And for me, that comes from a very small village in Brazil. In a very small place, there was no internet, there was no cars, there was no water in the house. We have to go and pick the basket and go in the well and pick up the water with my grandmother and come back home. Sometimes I see people that have a lot of opportunities, a lot of resources around them, but they're still looking for that thing they don't have. That little thing. Maybe, the money, maybe the family that is rich, maybe the connections, and they keep finding excuses all the time. Oh, maybe I'm not young enough anymore to do this, or maybe I'm not, old enough, maybe I don't have experience. It's always that, I don't have this, I don't have that. It's always looking for that thing. So that's why I decided to share this, because time and time again, people say to me, Randy, you have to speak about this to other people. You have to tell your story as well. And this morning I was coming to work and I forgot to turn on my lights. And in Poland, if you drive here, you know how it is. If you're driving, somebody somewhere is going to do this, if they're a pedestrian, or if they're driving a car, they'll blink the lights to you. Why? Because your light is off. You're not shining, you're not showing your true self. Something is missing, right? So people, you have to listen to these people. Maybe they're already telling you this. Maybe they're already, giving you some hints, like, hey, Carolina, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Hey, Jay, what's up? Maybe you should do this, you should do that. So you have to pay attention to those signs. I'm going to talk about what's your dream, what actions are you taking, face the obstacles, go beyond your fears, and then I'm going to ask you how far you go. My dream. What was my dream? Here you can see there is a movie behind me, and this movie was the reason why I decided to leave where I come from. I'm going to play just a little part of this, so you can see.
What's the last time he took a Scottish city?
Sanguinarius homo indomitus est, et semper dicens mentatium.
Ego nunquam pronunciare mentatium. Sed ego sum homo indomitus. Ou en français, si vous préférez.
So, nothing special about this. But for me, in Brazil, in Brazil we speak only one language, the whole country. So we don't get to meet people that speak different languages. So this for me was the first time ever in my life, when I was 13 years old, when I saw someone speaking more than one language. And that's something, it triggered something in me. I was like, wow, another human being can speak so many languages. And they were, trying to have a private conversation in front of him. And he was able to respond, shocking them, because they expected so little from him, being a Scottish savage or whatever. And I felt like, I'm from the village, people don't expect this kind of thing from me, so I want to learn other language. But in the farm, no books for language learning, no internet, no electricity, nothing. So how am I going to learn, And I remember me and Arnaldo, he's a friend of mine, we used to sit by the lake, and we used to talk about how it's going to be the future, 13 years old, thinking about what we're going to do. And Arnaldo said, are we going to move to the nearest town? And I was like, man, it's going to be tough because, we don't have anybody in that town to help us to stay there. But honestly, with you, I would like to go to another country, like America or something. And he was like, yeah, that's even crazy. We cannot even go to this nearest town. How can we even go to that place? But in my region, it's similar to the Góralski region in Poland. There's a lot of mountains. You can't see straight. You cannot. And then we have a saying that in my state we can never look too far, but we can always look up. We can always look to God for help. And that was my dream. At the moment I saw that thing, I was like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn it. I don't know how, but I will. And I was 13, now I was 34, so you can imagine, it's a long time. Then, what action did I take to do that? I went to a school and I looked for the prices of those courses in school. And we're talking about here, not like, I was born 4 years before the internet, so you can imagine. It was 1997, 1998. The course, English course, was going to cost a month like 1,000 zloty here today's money. So for me it was impossible. I was like, no, I cannot pay this. And I was just thinking of different solutions. What am I going to do to make this happen, you know? And then a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you go to the UK? I was there, in a few months I learned English. It's not difficult. You can, you know, once you're there, you don't have to pay. You're going to be talking to people daily, and you can learn. I was like, okay. So then what I did, I sold my chickens, I sold my cows. I had 5 cows, by the way. I used to be a cowboy. I used to milk cows for a living. And my father used to take my money, drink, and smoke that money, but it's okay. My father is an alcoholic, by the way. And then I was like, okay, I sold everything. I sold my motorbike. I sold everything. Because sometimes we want to do something, but we're always afraid of if it fails, right? And then we want to have a backup plan, something that we can fall back on. Maybe, you know, when it comes to corporation, it's good to have a backup plan. But in certain situations, we shouldn't have this kind of thing. Because if you have a backup plan, if I had left my motorbike behind, my 5 cows, I will probably be thinking, hey, if I go to the UK, if it doesn't work out, I'll come back. You know, I'll just go back to where I was, and I start doing this. But I had made a promise to myself. I say, I'll never cut cane sugar again. Did you guys ever cut cane sugar? Never? Don't ever wish that. It's horrible. It's like that thing cuts your neck and you're going to be itching the whole day. You're going to cut that thing, and you know, the cane sugar, we make vodka from that. And we also make sugar, normal sugar. So my father had a vodka factory, let's say. So we used to produce vodka. Brazilian vodka, it's called cachaça. And that was horrible. I was like telling God every night, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I want to work with this, not with this all day, you know. And I left, sold everything. In 2005, I took on the plane. I had never flown before. And this guy was in the queue next to me, a Brazilian guy. He asked me, I never forgot. I didn't know why he was asking me this. He said, is it your first time flying? I was like, yeah, why? Oh, nothing. I was like, he noticed something that I didn't. And I got on the plane, and I didn't speak English, of course. I didn't speak a word in English. And then the waiters were from Alitalia, so they're speaking Italian, you know, shouting. I thought they were having a fight, but they're actually talking to each other. And they're speaking English, of course. But I don't know, at that time, there was no law that the people on the airplane should speak Portuguese, the local language. So they just came to speak Italian Portuguese. And for Brazilians to drink coffee without sugar, it's something unimaginable. Coffee and sugar is together. There's no separation from those. And they offered me coffee. I didn't know what coffee was on their language, but he showed it to me, and I said, okay, and he gave it to me. But when I tasted it, it was horrible, but he had already gone. So I had to find a way to ask him for sugar. But I couldn't because I didn't know the word for sugar. I only knew açúcar, which is the Portuguese word for it. So I had to drink bitter coffee all the way to the UK. That was already the start. Arrived in the UK, I went to this corner shop and I wanted to buy something, you know. And then I get there and I'm thinking I'm gonna speak, you know, I'm gonna hear English and it's gonna be okay, British English, whatever. And the guy said, "Good morning, sir. How can I help you? What do you like to do? What do you like to buy?" I was like, man, this is a mess. It's like all sorts of different accents in my head. But I said, I'll learn it. I sit on front of the TV. I put the captions on, so whatever they say is written below. Take a notepad, and I started writing down every word I didn't know. So basically I was writing everything the guy was saying, because I didn't know any words. And then later I would just go and translate. I bought the dictionary, because we didn't have Google Translate there. And I started translating word by word, and then went back on. So I realized that the news was the best place to go, because they spoke slower, they spoke clearer, no slangs. So I started using the news, the BBC News. And then I found a job. So I started, you know, working on that job. And after a month and a half working on that job, the guy kind of like fired me. So I looked for a job, and I found a job in a French restaurant. And you know, French and English, they don't go together. So they speak French in the restaurant, they don't speak English. So that was I in the UK, trying to learn English, working with French people. And I used to say table, thinking that was the way to say it in English. And people said, "Are you French?" I said, "No, but you say words in French way. Like you say please, like table. Like, why do you do this?" And I was like, maybe because I'm learning from French. And then I decided to do something about it, and I decided to learn French as well. And it was crazy because a Brazilian guy told me, "Stop it, man. Why are you going to learn French? You don't even speak your proper language, my own language, because it's, we speak in my region like something like Góralski, like a broken Polish, broken Portuguese. And he said, try to learn the English first. Stop dreaming, okay? Stop it. Just focus on your English first. It's okay. And then I ignored him completely, and I started learning French. And one day, the guy told a joke in French, and I wasn't planning to understand it, but I did. And I started laughing. And this Brazilian guy said, hey, what did they say? The same guy that told me not to learn. And I said, and I translated to him. And then after I thought, if I had heard him or listened to him, I wouldn't be laughing now. So I decided to focus even more. And at the time, because I wasn't fluent in any of those languages, I was going on TV, watching some stuff, and I found a Spanish channel. So then I decided to tune in on Spanish channel. And it was about religion. And I was a very, religious guy. I still am, but I was even more. And I knew everything that the guy was going to say, because every time he said, oh, we're going to talk about Mark 60 or Mark 6:22, and I was like, I knew he was going to say it before he even said it. So I was learning Spanish on TV. And 5 years later, I go back to Brazil. And I was speaking already Portuguese and the other 3 languages, in different levels, of course, not all like amazingly fluent, but I was. And then I went back to my mom's house, and my mom said, hey, you want to stay with us in the village, in the farm? There's a job in the farm with your father. It's like my stepfather now. She married again. And I thought for a second, I said, hold on. I said to myself, I'll never cut cane sugar again. What am I doing here? I said, no, Mom, I'm going to São Paulo. And in São Paulo, I will look for a job. If I don't find a job, I'll come back to Minas Gerais. And I went. In 3 days, I found a job. And from one job to another, until one day, a Polish guy comes to the company, and he had an issue with his card, and his card wasn't working, and he needed to go to the bank. But in Brazil, we don't speak English a lot. Not many people do. So he needed somebody's help. But he was the type of guy that would not ask for help. He wanted to solve his problem by his own. But I was a foreigner before, and I knew what it was like to have issues like that. I remember in the UK, I broke my glasses in half, and there was nobody to go with me to the doctor. So I kept half of it in my pocket because I needed for the bus. When the bus was coming, I would just pick it up and do this, and then I see the number, and then I would just, wave, and then he would stop. And everything there is Najondania, unfortunately. And I knew what the problem was, so I sympathized with him, and I went with him to the bank, and we became friends. And when he left, I was fired from the project, and he said, no. Don't accept you to be fired from the project. I need you on that project. I was like, well, but I don't think you can change their decision. He said, don't worry about it. And I didn't know how powerful this guy was. He was the first employee in Atos Poland at the time. He hired the CEO of Atos Poland. So he was like really high up, and I had no idea. But my mother always told me this, treat the cleaner the same way you treat the president. Don't change the way you treat people. It's not nice. So for me, being important or not would be the same. And when they removed him from the project, he couldn't put it back on. He said, Randy, you know what? I couldn't do it, but I have a workaround. Check your email. And I checked, and it was an offer to come to work in Poland. And I just asked him, how does it work, because I don't speak Polish. And he said, don't worry, man, we speak English in our companies here, everybody. So just come. I was like, sure, because I knew I could do it again. I knew I had done it before, and I could do it again. And then 2 years later in Poland, I was able to understand Polish, speak Polish a bit, and survive. And I was looking back, I was like, wow, if I had, looked at all the obstacles, I could simply say, no, how can I move to Poland if I speak Polish? How can I move to the UK if I speak English, and so on. And sometimes you just need somebody to do it, so when you see it's possible, then it's believable. So that's why I'm sharing the story, because maybe there's something you want to do, but you're thinking, wow, it can't be done. But when you see that somebody did it, then it's easier for you to believe it. Like Usain Bolt, he's like almost 2 meters tall, I think. But for 100 meters, that doesn't work. Well, until he did it. So everybody believed that it wasn't possible for a man that tall to 100 meters and win, but he did. And that's what the situation is. Like we have to, whatever obstacle you have, might be the money, just don't give up. This poor frog is almost gone, but he's still fighting, And I come from a very poor family. If I was going to listen to everybody around me, I should be there right now, milking my cows, maybe, selling tomatoes like they used to do. but I refused to do that. And I know that I inspired my siblings, from my father's side, from my mom's side, because they're also from there, and they see that I did it. And for me to work in IBM today, like the biggest IT company in the world, it seems surreal sometimes, because like maybe 12 years ago I was milking cows in my country, and now I'm here. I had my first email account in 2005. I had my first computer in 2016. I had never touched a computer before, so it was very hard. And sometimes we see people, we don't know their stories. We have no idea what they went through to get where they are, and we just imagine that it was easy, it was okay, and just the idea is this: go beyond the fears, because this sentence really changed my life. It's really my motto. It's actually the signature of my email. Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far they can go. So it's only after your limits, it's only after the frontier that you're really gonna understand what you're capable of. You just have an idea what you can do, but you don't fully understand who you are yet. Honestly, none of us really know completely what we are capable of doing. Come on, for me, village boy, to be able to speak 5 languages, I mean, back there, if somebody told me this, I would be laughing to them. So, no, I cannot do this. And now I am speaking to you in English. And it just like, it's incredible. Because for you, you met already me speaking English. But I have videos of me speaking English back in the day, and it's not pretty. So that's all I wanted to show to you. Just look around, look for signs. Maybe somebody's already giving you signs, blinking the lights for you to start doing something. This is actually the first time I'm doing a motivational speech. And I think all of this that I believed was because of my grandmother. And I'll end with this story because he has a meeting as well to go. My grandmother was born in a family where only the oldest male son can learn the language or, be taught, go to school. The others don't go. They stay at home working the farm. And being a woman was even worse. She would not be entitled, even if she was the oldest one, she would not be entitled to go to school, only the oldest one. And back in those days, they had no school around, so the tutor comes to the home. So her father paid for the tutor to come and teach her older brother. But she knew that if she didn't learn it, she would be for the rest of her life illiterate, like the destiny of everybody in her family. But she refused to do that. And she was telling me this, I was 7 years old, I never forgot. She said she used to go, whenever the teacher entered the room with her brother, she used to go and look through the keyhole, because it's not like modern right now, the keys were huge. So she was looking through the keyhole and seeing how they were drawing the letters. And she was describing me in Portuguese how the letters were moving, and she was like fascinated by the design and the curves of the letters. She had no notepad, no pencil, nothing. She would go to the sand in the road, and she used to write down with a branch of a tree, a small tree, she would write on the finger, and she used to remember them and draw them again. And with that this challenge that she had, she was able to learn to write and read Portuguese, and even write poems. So my grandmother was the reason I believed it was possible to be done, because once you want to do something, you will find how to do it. So that's my motivational speech for today, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I hope
Really good.
Thank you.
Really good. I'm motivated.
Great. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Nice to hear, nice to hear. Just, give me a feedback on ACE if you have something that, if it was too long, was too confusing, because I planned something, but it was too much noise from there as well. But yeah, I tried my best.
Don't worry about the noise. I mean, you choose the right movie as example, so